Thank you for listening to Living Our Best with Memory Loss.
Hi, I'm Bob Stryer, one of your podcast hosts. I do have mild cognitive impairment, MCI, and it was brought on by a stroke.
I'm Sue Ann Cobb. I'm one of your hosts. I have mild cognitive impairment due to having MS.
And I'm Dennis Lowe, also a producer of this podcast, and I have a diagnosis of young onset, early stage Alzheimer's disease.
I'm David Bollinger. They call me Debo. I run the equipment here so you can see and hear these guys. Welcome to our podcast, Living Our Best with Memory Loss.
The purpose of this podcast is for people to share their experiences with cognitive decline. It is not to provide medical advice. We are not doctors, and we stress that what might have worked for one person might not work for others. If anything you hear on this program inspires you to explore treatment options, we recommend you do so in consultation with your physician.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of our podcast, Living Our Best with Memory Loss. My name is Dennis Lowe, and I'm here with Bob Stryer, another one of our producers. And today we are talking with John Dreves and Elizabeth Estill.
Glad to be here.
Well, to begin, we read your bios, and you folks are so accomplished. Just briefly, what did you do for a career?
I was a fundraising consultant most of the time.
And Elizabeth?
Well, I worked for the Tennessee Valley Authority for a while. I taught for a while at junior college and then at Harvard. And I ended up my career with the U.S. Forest Service, where I had the best job in the world as the National Director of Recreation. And then I became the deputy chief, which was just a lot of work.
So, John, you were a consultant. What does that entail?
Well, first of all, I'd like to give away money. I don't have any money to give away, so I thought maybe I could help organizations raise money. So I did that, and all kinds of organizations, as big as the American Red Cross nationally and as small as a local church.
Raising money is a very important thing today.
Is very satisfying.
Yeah.
And I see you have a special guest.
She is my comfort dog.
What is your friend's name?
Her name is Gruffy.
Gruffy. That's a great name for a dog. So now that you're both here on our podcast, which one of you has a problem?
Well, I have the blessing.
Gotcha.
My primary care doctor, I went in one day and had an examination, and about ready to leave, and he says, "Anything else bothering you?" And I said, "Yeah, I can't remember names. I can't remember words." And he said, "Oh, that's common, but we'll take a little test and check you out."
Common for your age.
Yeah. So we took a test and finished it, and he said, "You're fine." He said, "Does that still bother you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, we'll set up an appointment with the doctor." So later, I met with my doctor, and she said, "John, I want to show you something." She took a piece of paper. She says, "This is your MRI." And it showed dark edges around each one of my lobes in the brain. And she said, and Elizabeth was sitting next to me, and she said, "You have early stage Alzheimer with minimal cognitive impairment." And I think after I got over the shock of that, probably the first thing I said was, "Can I still drive?" And she said, "Of course."
At that point, everything seemed to be great. She was amazed that he was doing as well as he was, because when she looked at his brain scan, it looked much worse than he apparently was. And after 6 or 8 months of testing, including the amyloid tests and so forth. She confirmed it really was Alzheimer's, but he was doing remarkably well with it and was still normal. So that's kind of how we've gone since then.
And how many years ago was that?
That's been 3 years ago now.
3 years ago. Okay.
Is that something that is normal with Alzheimer's people, that some are good and some can't do anything?
I don't know, but I think it probably is. And I've noticed a little, quote, slippage and took tests a couple days back and it confirmed it, but not bad.
Now, John, I have early onset Alzheimer's, early stage. So, and it's kind of confusing. I don't know why. I don't know why they used early in both instances, but young onset, early stage Alzheimer's. Yours, of course, is late because you're older than 65, but still early stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was your diagnosis. How long ago were you formally diagnosed? How long did it take from the time you first saw the specialist, who I assume was referred by your physician, before you got your diagnosis?
Well, she gave us the diagnosis right away.
Right away. Okay.
Yeah.
Between the time of your diagnosis and today, what changes are you now aware of?
Short-term memory loss for sure. My long-term memory is not that bad, or not any worse than it was ever. I never have had a good memory. That's the big thing.
So you feel your short term is the one that's
Right.
the problem now?
Right.
What about aphasia? What about reduced ability to speak, to issues with dropping words, forgetting words as you're uttering a sentence?
I don't think it's that bad. I've noticed it, but I just stop a second, catch the word, and then go on.
Oh, lucky you.
Well, sometimes I get a little help if we're together.
Yeah, Elizabeth, how did you feel after you heard what the doctor has told him about what he has? How did you feel about that?
Well, I was in shock. My mother had died of Alzheimer's. The reason we moved back to Knoxville was to take care of my mom and dad. And I guess I was the first one that noticed her decline before she was ever diagnosed. And she was then diagnosed and it was confirmed. Her decline was relatively slow for the first few years, but then she just plummeted. She, we had to dress her. I had to feed her. She couldn't talk. It was devastating. We think she still recognized us, but we didn't really know for sure during that last year. So it was very difficult. With John, of course, I had all of those flashbacks to my mom. And I was surprised that John had that diagnosis. I was also quite pleased that the doctor had indicated that he was doing extremely well considering what his brain looked like, and that if he did things to continue stimulating that brain, it might not get a whole lot worse. So, I was hopeful. John was not willing to even talk about it for the first several months and didn't get involved with the Alzheimer's Association for a few months, didn't tell family for a few months. But once he kind of got over it and recognized that there were things that he could still do and things that he could do to perhaps keep what abilities that he currently had and not let them decline much. It was all good
Yeah.
at that point.
Well, I got emotional the first time I heard what my doctor told me I had, and I still get emotional when I talk about it. And I guess I get emotional for different reasons. hearing everybody else that has the same problems. I mean, everyone is just like a big group. I mean, you might have different diseases and they call it by different names, but we're all in the same place. And sometimes it's difficult to talk about it.
But it's also comforting to know that there's a lot of people going through this. I'm not alone in the world.
Definitely. So, Elizabeth, what did you see in John?
Before he was diagnosed?
Yeah, before and after.
Well, before the diagnosis, I really didn't see much at all. He's always been amazing, remembering phone numbers from people from 20 years ago and addresses and anything that was numeric. He could do and still can do.
Right.
He started dropping names, the inability to come up with who people were. And that was sort of a surprise because he's always remembered names. And I was the one that always said, "Who is that? Who is that?" And he could tell me. So that was sort of a change. But really, he wasn't showing much in the way of symptoms, other than he got grumpy. And his personality was beginning
Yes, you, John.
beginning to change a little bit. He's always been a tremendous neatnik, and he wasn't quite as neat as he used to be, but mostly it was grumpiness. After he was diagnosed, we talked about that, and he's done a lot better.
That means I had a lot to learn, improve on.
I think we all do, John.
John, I'd like to know what you do to stem the progress of this condition.
Well, I've made some notes,
Okay.
mostly to keep because I can't remember things. First of all, don't give up. Don't quit. I was told to socialize more. There's lots of stuff that the Alzheimer's Association offers. At some point in time, I was told that I ought to either take a course or study a language, and I didn't. I thought I could easily study a language, and I found out about Duolingo on an app, a free app on the net, so I'm studying Spanish. Español, no, yo estudio español. Then I read at another point that I should make sure that my vision is as good as it can be and my hearing is as good as it can be because my brain needs that stimulation. So I remember I've always worn hearing aids. And a point about that, I know people who have hearing aids, but they don't wear them because it's, quote, uncomfortable or something. And it just, why don't you wear your hearing aids? I remember the first day I got them, I came home, I got out of the car, and I thought, my golly, there are birds singing. I didn't know that. It was great.
Yeah, I definitely forget to put them in. And when I'm talking to Lori, I keep going, "What'd you say? What'd you say?" And she says, "Your hearing aids in?" I says, "No, but you're speaking so softly, I can't hear you."
Well, I can't say I put them in religiously every morning, but I get about 30 steps away from the bathroom where they are.
Yeah.
And realize that I didn't put my hearing aids in. I said, "Oh, damn, I have to go put my hearing aids in." I go back and put them on.
If he makes it to breakfast without those hearing aids, I remind him to go put them in. There have been too many studies, too much research that shows the connection between dementia and hearing loss.
Now, this is the first time I'm hearing this. Now, I'm a big believer in working out physically to get yourself in shape because so many of the people that I know that have dementia don't do anything. and they need to get working out and get their bodies built up, and also different foods that you can eat. I've read all about these, but I've never heard anything about the hearing aids. And so now I think I'm going to be putting them in every morning.
It's a good thing to remember.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
that's really great. Now, how about here? How about eyesight?
I had my vision checked, and I found out that I had cataracts, and so I had cataract surgery. So after that, for the first time since I was 5 years old, started wearing glasses. I didn't need glasses. Don't have glasses or contacts.
Wonderful.
Again, the more stimulation you've got going through your eyes, through your ears, through your nose,
So it's all
tasting,
about stimulation.
it's all about stimulating that brain. And crossword puzzles, number games, Sudoku, any of those kinds of things are good to do. Can't hurt.
I mentioned Alzheimer's Association and what they offer. One of the things that I was told by a guy that I met through socializing on the internet, he told me about the choir. They have heart sung choir. So I joined the choir, and that's been an amazing experience for me. I never sang in my life, never had any experience singing, and it's just been great.
And you just performed a few days ago.
Yes, my first concert.
All
They've
right.
been going on for several years.
Wonderful. What do you do for cognitive stimulation? Are you still reading? What are you exposing yourself to? I know you're learning a language.
I must admit that I don't read much, frankly, because I don't remember what I read. I picked up a book a couple months ago and started reading it, and I get into it and I think, you've read this book before. So I get bored with it. So reading is not something I do. Can you think of anything else?
Oh, certainly. John's got a large family, and at this point has 9 grand and great grandkids that are at an age where they absorb things like sponges. So one of the things that he's been doing is taking each of the grands and great grands on a trip. John is a historian and loves to talk about history. And when he did read, it was mostly history kinds of things. So the grandkids really latch on to all of those stories, and most of it's true.
What a wonderful gift you can give that generation. You can give your grandkids. They'll always remember it. They'll never forget you. And that's so special that you're giving of yourself at this point.
So, John, did we talk about everything on your list? I know you had a list of things you wanted to speak about. So, you want to make sure we touched on them.
I think we've gone over most of it, but I would like to summarize my feelings. I'm more of a well-rounded person as a result of Alzheimer's than I ever was before. And bottom line for me is Alzheimer's is a plus, not a negative. I think I'm a better person, and I love it.
What a wonderful takeaway. Because I have pretty much the same feeling about my condition, that I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. And I'm not chalking it up to Alzheimer's, but it's just the way that we've chosen to respond to our situation.
Exactly,
That
our
we can
response to it.
Yeah, we can be negative, we can be despondent over it, or we can find the gems and make the most of it.
Well, I like to tell myself, John, the only thing you can control in your life is your attitude. Everything else is going to happen, but you can control your attitude mostly to what goes on. So I try to remind myself to always have a positive attitude.
Well, Dennis keeps telling me that he used to be a miserable person.
Well, he's not now.
A miserable person. And now he's the most pleasant person I know.
It's making the caregiver a better person too.
Yep.
I remember my dad taking care of my mom, and it was the most beautiful thing to watch. He clearly adored her and wanted to take good care of her right up until the end. I, at this point, don't think of myself as a caregiver. I really don't. Maybe I do a little more around the house than I used to, because John used to be such a wonderful housekeeper for us. But generally, it's a partnership, and the roles change slightly, but it's still a partnership.
Yep. Well, we want to thank the both of you for being here this morning. It's been very, very informative, especially for me. And we hope you join us again sometime.
It's been delightful.
Well, for me, it's been an opportunity that I really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.